This is Robert Clinkybeard and David Anderson with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing business content from accomplished leaders to bring you value, scale your business, and better yourself personally. We hope you really enjoy the show, and I encourage you to share with your network so they can subscribe and we can expand these messages globally. We are also super excited to be supported by two brilliant sponsors. If you're tired of measuring properties, Site Recon platform fully automates measurements so you can focus on sales. So think measurements, think Site Recon. The other sponsor is Company Cam, who make it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field no matter where you are. Company Cam brings documentation, communication, and liability protection together in one simple, easy to use app for you and your entire team. Company Cam is the only app every landscaper needs. Check it out. This is Robert Clinkybeard with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. So really excited today to be joined by Jon Crandall. He's the founder and chief visionary of JC Grounds Management. You've been working in the landscape and snow and ice management field for over 20 years now. I love what you do. You take pleasure out of building relationships and opportunities with your employees, clients. So welcome, Jon.
Thank you, Robert. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Good to see you. You've been. We're just talking about how you've been busy with snow and ice, during the winter. But tell me a little bit more about, your background and how you got into the industry.
Well, I think we only have 30 minutes because that could take a few days, but I'll give you the abbreviated version.
Okay.
It's been 25 years now. Roughly got into the industry in high school. I was one of those guys one of those kids rather, that just loved sitting in front of the window watching the plow trucks go by my house, in the winter season. And I had a close family member that asked me one day to go help him. He had a small landscape company. He asked me to go help him do some pruning. And I went. I think I was 15 at the time. I didn't even have my driver's license. And I worked with him for about 3 or 4 hours. And I had worked since I was probably 13 or 12. I don't remember. I've always worked doing odd jobs or whatever. And he, anyways, the end of the day, he gave me, I think, like $60 or something, or $40. And it was way more than I had expected. And he had gotten I went with him to the door to get his pay for the day from the person. He was just collecting a check, and I saw the check, and it was $500. And I asked him, I said, Ray, I don't understand. We only worked like 3 hours. Why did you get $500? And he said, well, it doesn't work that way. When you have a business, you get paid by the job, not by the hour. And that really got my kind of entrepreneurial mind, start, I guess. It was right there, at that moment. So
no, I don't blame you. I mean, that's a nice little paycheck for a few hours work. So
yeah.
And then how did you jump into? I mean, I assume you just didn't buy a bunch of trucks and get out there. What was
Sure.
You obviously took that leap of faith to getting into become a business owner, which is no easy feat, and so many people think about it. But then taking that first, couple of steps is really challenging.
Yeah, of course. Well, I tell everyone the story. I've spoken about it in the past. We started. So I worked 3 different jobs while I was in high school, and I joked that my company was funded by Shaw's Supermarkets because that's what we started with, was $500 in savings, and that same family member, he got a job with the police force, and he really couldn't do both things. So I had asked, I said, I ended up buying a small truck. And I said, geez, I think I want to try to cut some lawns. So he had a ski-mobile trailer. He let me use the trailer for the summer, and he had one commercial mower. And he said, if you can cut this one property for the summer, I'll take all the revenue, and that'll pay for the mower. And that's what got me started, was the $500 and that kind of generosity of the family member. And just fortunately after that, I've had, I don't have enough time to speak on all of them, but I've had so many mentors over the years that I feel like I was lucky at so many different points of my life where reached out or had someone reach out to me and say they could mentor, and that's really the story of it all.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's some great advice here. I mean, I'm a firm believer in surrounding yourself with people around you, whether it be mentors, coaches, people with an EO. There's so many people out there that you can lean on that are willing to also share all the information, experience that they've gathered. So now here we are, 25 odd years later. You've built a really successful company. What are some of the challenges that you see out there, either within your company or the industry as a whole?
It's a great question. And again, something I could talk so much on, but I think, for one right now, one of the things that we've heard over and over, in our regular meetings, weekly meetings with our leadership team is certainly that finding people, and then, so it's always been a challenge just you want to hire the best. I tell my team all the time, I say, our lifespans are short, 10 years goes by so quick. And I have, some pretty big aspirations, and I want our team to have some amazing opportunities as well. I mean, there's no point in them being here if they don't have those, great opportunities. So, I've said, I've got this they know where the plan of the business is going. They've seen that I've laid it all out. We've put it together as a team, and they know the direction, and they know it's pretty aggressive. And I've said, we don't have time for C players. We don't have time for B players. And I know some people don't like calling them A players, but the reality is there's some people that are very passionate and that want some amazing things in life. And those are the people we want in our team. We want the people with the passion, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be amazing in their skill set yet. We can help train that, but we're looking for those people that have a similar set of core values, ethics, drive, and wants, they want with passion some amazing things to happen in their life, and that's who we're looking for on our teams. And so it's always been challenging just to find that, but then to find, through things the way they've been in the last year, it's been even more challenging, to find the help for the field and everything else.
No, it's so true. And we talked just offline about coming up with a strategic plan for your business, and there's EOS, there's traction, there's scaling up. So there's all different plans in place, and then to have those typically A players to help execute that plan is really essential, and make sure everybody's on board. What are some of the techniques that you use to try and attract those A players into your company?
Sure, that's a great question. So I would say it's obviously it's definitely not just me anymore. And Robert, this is one thing I'll say, and I think you could probably say the similar thing from your past. Every time we've made really, I've looked back and I saw that we had a huge amount of growth or a big jump. It literally was tracked back to a key employee. So I can say that, beyond the mentorship and everything else, those key employees are the ones that make the biggest growth steps in our business. And now many of them are the ones doing the hiring. I do very little of it now, but I have sat in on some of the, especially some of the higher up interviews. And one of the things that we'll push is we have a set of core values that we've established from a while ago. And we've actually put together core value questions. So we'll run through some of those questions to see if those, team members will have similar core values. And it's not perfect, but it helps get us a little bit closer.
Yeah, no, I love the use of core values, not only with hiring, but also with doing, evaluations on existing employees. Now, one of the things I come across many of the companies I go in and coach is that, a lot of people will have the core values, it's maybe on display in their offices, looks all nice and pretty, but then I start asking them, well, what are some of the things that you're doing, on a daily, weekly basis to reinforce and make those core values alive?
Mm-hmm.
And I get that blank look in the faces. So, that question goes to you. Just, what are some of the techniques you use within your company? Because it sounds like you've built a really good culture. So, yeah,
Sure.
talk me through that.
Yeah, and it resonates with me as well, because I was one of those people too. You read these business books and everything else, and they say you have to have a mission statement, you have to have core values, you have all these different pieces, right? And I'm not trying to push EOS here, because as you said, there's several systems. There's scaling up, there's Jack Stack's Great Game of Business, there's all these different. Reality is you just pick one, and that's going to help be the operating system for the company. And that's what EOS did for us, is it pulled all this stuff together, the different pieces that you'll hear that you should do. And then it also gives you a rhythm to reinforce them. So to your point, yeah, I was one of those guys. We have to have the core values. And then you'd meet me 3 years later at a conference and say, well, what are they? And I might miss one of them. So,
Yeah.
but one of the things that EOS has helped us do is we'll reinforce them through what we call core value stories. And we have a quarterly town hall meeting, which is an all-employee meeting, and we'll reinforce the core values through those stories. So we'll collect core value stories to the management team, that comes from the foreman and whatnot, from our mid-level and our field teams, and we'll get stories back. And it's my favorite part of the town hall. We do it at the end of the meeting. The meeting runs about an hour, 15 minutes. At the end of the meeting, we will share the core value stories, and we'll recognize the team member that that created that story, or was the effect. And those are the most fun. I had a client call me the other day. She was almost in tears, and she said, one of our team members, and this is a large retirement community, about a 90-acre site, 2,000 people on the site. And she said she saw, not her, one of her team members caught one of our team members arranging some hearts. So what had happened was, this is a retirement, assisted living retirement community, and they had the Alzheimer's week, where they had a bunch of the community members had painted rocks and put the names of their loved ones that had passed of Alzheimer's in the rocks.
Oh, wow, okay.
So the rocks had scattered over the winter, and one of our team members, we didn't know, but one of our team members had taken them all and made a heart out of them in a plant bed that he had just cleaned. And one of the staff there cheered up and ended up catching him doing that. And then it went back to the management team of that company, and they called me on it. So and then it actually took us a few days to find out which one of our people it was.
Right.
But those are the really neat stories that we like to share, and that, there's so many different things. We have a core value to build strong relationships, so that's the one that we recognize there, but you could also call it so many other things.
No, what I love about that story is it goes two ways, because first of all, yeah, not only does it builds that trust and takes that relationship with your client to another tier. By then, your employee didn't have to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? He could have just walked on and done his flower bed and just left the rocks where they were. But so not only have you taken that relationship with the client to a higher level, but also when you recognize that employee within your company, that's also going to help, your culture. And I'm sure that it has a knock-on effect in terms of hiring new employees or getting referrals into your company as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that we'll hear when these stories are shared around. That's what's fun about it, is you start hearing the employees and the team members sharing these stories, and some of them, not all of them, get back to me. I wish they all did, but it's my favorite part of that meeting. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I love that. What other things are you seeing out there in terms of either enhancing your culture, as I call it, or even some other challenges you see that either you're facing or other people in the industry are facing, and what they're doing to overcome that?
Let's see. So from a culture, I guess a team member or culture standpoint, I think one of the things that you said earlier about having the quarterly meetings or review meetings with our team, with team members, we do that regularly. We do what we call core values check-in. And that's one of the things that I'm, in my earlier days of my career, I wasn't as good of a boss or a manager, because I felt I wasn't as direct as I should have been. And I think those quarterly meetings, when we're really honest and direct, We share the good and the bad, and do that core values check in, and go through our kind of different checks that we'll do. I think that's real helpful to our team members, because they know where they stand. They know what they're doing really well. They know what they need to improve on. And back when I was really young, and probably I just wasn't as mature. I felt I may have hampered some people's career, at least in my business, because I wasn't being honest. I didn't want to be the bad guy, so I wasn't being as direct as I could have been.
Right.
So that's one thing I could share that, I almost wish I had known sooner.
Yeah, well, I think, as you said, a lot of us will get into the business through some, obscure way or default way. We don't necessarily what we're doing. And along the way, we'll make a lot of mistakes along the journey. But, we reflect back and we hopefully learn from them and try and keep making improvements to not only ourselves, but also our company, our employees. Now, I want to jump back on to one of the things you mentioned with, EOS, whatever system you're using. I mean, a lot of people, again, talk about that, but a lot, when you start mentioning it to owners, they immediately think, oh, that's going to be so much extra work for me. I'm going to have to more meetings. I'm going to be, have to, display numbers. I've maybe never displayed my company numbers before. So it almost becomes, that fear overcomes them. But, talk me through your process, and because I'm sure it probably took a good 6 months to a year to really get into some type of a good rhythm and,
Right.
going, almost like trusting the process.
Absolutely. So we're about 4 years in now. I was real fortunate to have a close friend of mine who had just exited from his second business. He decided he wanted to be an EOS implementer, and so it was the perfect fit. He's actually, you can see my background. I'm in my house up north, and he's literally coming here in a couple hours to hike with me all day tomorrow. So we're close friends, and he's an amazing person, amazing implementer, and but yeah, it takes a bit of time to get a rhythm established. You also have to have 100% buy-in from your team, but what I'll say is it does a few things. I'd say two of the most important things is, one is people say, oh, gee, to your point, you have to develop scorecards for your different teams. So we have a leadership team level card, we have a middle management, scorecard, and we even have a field level. And those are what I call leading and not what I call, but what are called leading and lagging metrics. So the best way to explain is, if you're trying to lose weight, your leading metric would be calories, and in exercise time or exercise rhythm, and then your lag number would be you get on the scale and you either lost, went up or down in pounds. So we look for those leading indicators that we can measure, make sure we're doing the right things in order to have the lagging indicator, the lagging number metric that we want to hit, for our goal. So what the scorecards do and what EOS does really well is, sure, it'll smoke out some of the underachievers or the players that aren't doing as well. And it'll smoke out some of the ones that are clearly, they just need to move on and go to your competition. And then,
I like that.
What's better, more importantly, it gives credit to where it's credit due. So, when you have some of those team members that are just crushing it and you can see it in the scorecard, you want to give that, that member a pat on the back and a thank you and potentially a raise or whatever it may be. But it'll show you who's really cranking. And then what's also great about EOS is, and this is better described, and Gino Wickham has some YouTube videos that you could grab online, but I love his video on the L10 meeting. My meetings, when we used to go into, a group of us would go into a meeting and we would definitely talk about some important things and we would definitely get some takeaways. But what EOS does better is you go into the meeting with a group of people and you come out of the meeting with the list of to-dos. And, I'm describing it really briefly here, but the amount of to-dos that come out of a meeting is how I rate it. So at the end of the meeting, we'll rate 0 to 10. 10 means it's excellent. If we've got a long list of to-dos, I'm always a 10, because that means that list is I know it's gonna get done. My leadership teams and my mid-level teams, they get their to-dos done 99% every week. So the next week, we're gonna go through that list, and 99% of those are gonna get checked off, and we made some amazing headway. And that's what I love about that system. It's just a great accountability, a great system to reward people, and a great system to push the wrong people out.
No, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I agree 100%. To come out of a very, agenda-driven meeting with some numbers, and then that to-do list at the end is powerful. Now, obviously, you've been doing that for 4 years, and again, coming out of those meetings, and hopefully in that 8 to 10 range for scoring the meetings. How has that overall affected your company? Have you seen some dramatic results because of doing that?
I would say yes. Year over year, the last 4 since the US, we've grown over 25% a year, 20 to 25%. That's our run rate. And yeah, so this year we're planning for 25. We've said it could be as much as 30. So it's been, and that's, everyone knows you can sell it, you have to operate it too. So you can have that growth, but you've got to retain the clients that you already have. So it's a balance with us always. I think Jim Collins said, stimulate progress, but protect the core. And we believe in that. We want to take care of the clients that have been really good to us, and obviously continue to move forward to create more opportunity. One thing, Robert, I wanted to share that's always, this is one thing that you haven't asked yet, but, or you did ask it in a different way. The one thing, if anyone could, if I could say the one most important thing, and the thing, I have 3 children. I have twin girls and a son. My girls are 6. My son is 1.5. And the thing that I'm going to teach those kids more than anything is going to be the ability to communicate, and the ability to reach out and talk to your peers, and reach out to those mentors. You mentioned that earlier. People sometimes look at me with 3, like I have 3 heads, because I'll share some of my best friends are Mike Rory, Jeff Tovar, some amazing names in the industry. There's several others, Mark Moore, Norm Dietrich. These are guys these are trailblazers. They've got some amazing companies, and literally I pick the phone up. I call them. I saw them on a post like this, or read about them in a magazine. I picked the phone up. I think Jeff Tovar was interesting. I was in Chicago for something, and I literally called him when my plane landed, and he said, "Come on by." And 6 years later now, we're very close. I talk to him 2 or 3 times a week. So that's what, learning from those people, that almost every company I mentioned to you, several of them are 10 times the size of mine. I mean, being able to learn from someone like that is just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm interested in this because I've also got young kids as well. How do you then teach that to your kids? Because obviously, they're watching you. They're always, even though you don't think they're watching you, and their heads are in the video games, they're always observing what you're doing. So how do you try and pass that on to your kids so that they learn from you and become better communicators, and know to pick up the phone rather than just relying on text or social media?
Sure. One of my peers mentioned to me not long ago. I asked him how he got that type of attitude, or what's the right word for it? Mindset. Yeah, thank you. And he had said that his father, in the early days, they'd be in a restaurant together having lunch or something. His father would take him out, and his father would ask him, he'd say, "Hey, what do you think of that guy sitting over there?" And his son, him, would make a preconceived, he'd say, "This is what I think." But and what his father would do is grab him by the hand and say, "Why don't we go over and say hi to him, see who he is?"
Wow, I love that.
And I thought that was amazing. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, I love that. I've never heard that before, but yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, Jon, really appreciate your time today. If people want to get hold of you, find out more about your core values, about EOS, or just about your company in general, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'd say, you can find me online. You can my email is simple. It's just jon@jcgrounds.com, or you can call the office. I'm very open. I love talking to entrepreneurs or people in the industry. So more than welcome to pick up the phone and give me a call.
Cool. Well, thank you, Jon. Really appreciate your time today. You've shared some wonderful wisdom. I think all of our listeners will benefit from listening to this today, and maybe later on this year we'll get you back on again. So thank you for your time, Jon.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it.
Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and we've got some great takeaways for your business and your personal life. This is Robert Clinkenbeard along with David Anderson, and we'd love to get you and your friends to join us on our journey. 2 quick things before you go, listeners. Check out our website, thecommerciallandscaper.com. You can subscribe, you can share with your friends, but more importantly, check out our sponsors. We have Site Recon, who are going to help to capture measurements on your property and create a really streamlined process. And we have Company Cam, who make it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field, no matter where you are. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.